Talk Radio.
It's Thursday, November 28th, 2024. It's Thanksgiving.
InfoWars. Tomorrow's news today.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this Thanksgiving transmission. I'm your host, Alex Jones, and very honored and very thankful that you have kept us on the air for more than 30 years, 27 years of InfoWars. We have been so embattled, but God has taken us through the storms over and over again with the deep state's attempts to shut us down in the last year, particularly being incredibly intense. And then, of course, we have President Trump and all the hell he's gone through. I thank God for him and his strength and his iron will. I am so thankful just to God, first and foremost, for the gift of consciousness and how God works through so many great men and women, not just here in America, but around the world. I'm so thankful to the crew. I am so thankful to my family, and I am just incredibly honored to be here and to see so much of what we work for happening and being vindicated, and to be part of this time in history, the Great Awakening, as humanity is at the critical crossroads, deciding our future destiny. I am just extremely thankful. You know, you hear those air raid sirens coming in, and they're emblematic of the deepening world war that even the head of MI6 came out yesterday and said we're in. But it's also emblematic of the mindset of the globalists and where they are. They're hearing the air raid sirens, but not physical bombs or missiles coming their way, but bombs and missiles of truth that are destroying their lives, their credibility, their systems. You know, I'm also very thankful for Elon Musk and what he's done at X. Just yesterday, I was on his personal page, and I was on it a little while ago, and just every post was so on target, and I came to the realization he's doing a better job than I am. And why is that? Well, he's reaching a lot more people, but I've made films about it, talked about it, but I don't bring back basic stuff I used to cover decades ago. And I've covered it, you know, here and there. The fact that the EU was established by the Bilderberg Group in 1957 by a steel deal to set up a private governing corporate system through NATO that had been set up a few years before to then buy off the governments and then have them sign over their authority to the EU Commission that's unelected. And there was Elon Musk yesterday pointing out that the EU Commission is unelected and is a dictatorship, and that the EU Parliament is ceremonial. Now, I know that. A lot of people don't know that. I mean, Canada, the King of England can dissolve the Parliament anytime he wants. They have a Governor General that's over it. The more Canadians find out about that, the closer they get to real independence, like we had in our war of 1776. I mean, these are big truths hiding in plain view, and the only way the globalists can succeed is to have an unelected UN over our health care and our lives, or to have an unelected EU that's set up as a trade deal as the model of globalism, where you have this big multinational corporate system that governments through treaty can sign their authority over to. Once the general public understands that the globalists are predatory, that they want to destroy free market and justice and due process and upward mobility, that they literally want to depopulate us, not just make us slaves, then people realize they have nothing to lose but to fight it. I don't fight the New World Order out of just pure mindless courage. It would take blind, idiotic courage to serve evil and go along with something so predatory and so sick. So I believe in humanity. I bet on humanity. I believe that once you learned about this and saw the consequences of tyranny, you would not want to live under it, and I bet right. And you bet on us, and I'm very thankful for those of you that have kept us on air by your word of mouth, your prayer, and supporting our sponsors, that no matter what happens to InfoWars, the AlexJonesStore.com is not owned by me, so the bad guys can't get it. They can continue to fight for free speech and to keep not just my broadcast, but other great broadcasts they sponsor, like Steven Crowder, the Hodge Twins, and so many others on the air. That's the folks at Bigley that own and run the shopping cart there at the AlexJonesStore.com. So, from myself and the entire crew, we salute you and thank you. Incredible interview with groundbreaking intel that's so important coming up with General Flynn in studio, and then so much more. Remember, the real power is in you, my Paul Reveres. So share the live feeds at Relax Jones on X and Infowars.com/show. We'll be right back with General Flynn in studio. I want you to have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I thank God for you.
bombastic. It's Alex Jones.
Hour number 2 of this Monday, November 25th, 2024 broadcast. I'm your host, Alex Jones, coming to you from the embattled InfoWars studios in Austin, Texas. And General Flynn, Michael Flynn, is our guest for the next 2 hours. He's the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, former top national security advisor to President Trump, and, of course, been a major political target of the deep state. But with your help and God's grace, defeated that. And he is one of the top brains in the world of just a few that we could have here today with the biggest escalation, I believe, in the nuclear age towards nuclear war. And that, of course, is the New York Times announcement that senior administration officials, this was an announcement just like a week and a half ago through the New York Times, that Biden authorized the bombing of Russia with attack of missiles, which then 2 days later began. Then England, now France is announcing it. England's already bombed the UK. They've formed this new northern group, even if Trump gets NATO to back down. This new northern group led by the UK and Germany and Poland says they're going to continue the war. And in the New York Times article, just for new listeners joining us, I covered it last hour, they're saying, well, we can't just let Trump have peace. We've got to escalate this and give Ukraine nuclear weapons. So they are floating that. They are proposing that, just like they did in the last few months, giving them the ATACMS and Storm Shadows. They've done that. So that they are seriously trying to bring the world to the verge of a hot war. And I was just talking to General Flynn before we went live. He's about to exclusively, this is what he does for a living, top expert on the deep state. And he said there was a good chance they would try civil unrest and crisis and martial law, but I'm about putting words in your mouth. But you said now it looks like that is where they're going. So we're about to lay out real-time scenarios with the globalists that are so desperate, they either go to prison or they start World War III. General Flynn, thank you for being here. GeneralFlynn.com. Your new books on asymmetrical warfare. All of it is invaluable. Everybody should visit and follow everything you do at GeneralFlynn.com. And thank you for coming here to Austin, Texas, just for our broadcast, sir. I'm going to try to, as best I can now, really for the most of the hour, give you the floor. Then I've got a lot of questions. And also, we're going to post a link on X for people's questions to you. Mm-hmm. In fact, we should launch an X Spaces and take some questions or comments next hour. We'll do that as well. But General Flynn, thank you.
Do that. Yeah, I would really love to do that, especially get questions. I think there's a lot of questions out there right now. So when all this began, with the exchange of these weapon systems, right? This firing, the allowance of the ATACMS to shoot across the border and all this sort of thing, right? These are events that all occurred, and you have to look at these, in like the so what. And so I took, and I've been talking about this for a long, long time, actually, months, if not years. And I just remind people that the original regional war in Ukraine started in February of 2014. So that was during the Obama administration. Of course, Trump was able to kind of keep things in check because of his great leadership. And then, of course, when Biden came in 2020 or after in 2021, then we started to build back up. And this is where we're at right now. So we had this monumental victory where President Trump won a huge victory here, and a mandate, they call it, I guess. So the last couple of days I've been going through, what I do, right? What I do for a living is one of the things that I do is I look at scenarios that can play out, and I lay them out. And I actually wrote a document the other day, and like Alex has got his stuff here. I kind of went through the last probably 4 or 5 months of news articles that I do, right? Research that I do and things that I look at. And much of this stuff is starting to play out. One of the scenarios that I'm going to just tick these off real quick. I put out 5 the other day. One is the continued assassination of President Donald J. Trump. I still firmly believe that is on the table. I do not think for a second that conversation has been taken off by these people that want to get us involved in essentially a military industrial complex, sleepwalking, whatever you want to call it, war, World War III. So the second scenario is really this idea of conventional resistance, and conventional resistance is really where, it's just to try to create the conditions where there's no coming back, and you have this conventional march to essentially what would be turn from a regional war to a world war. One of the things, and it is breaking today, the United Kingdom and France, in a way, are threatening the incoming Trump administration that if Trump removes aid from Ukraine, both those countries are threatening to send troops into Ukraine. And I don't get the thinking there, but that's out there today. That's breaking news today. The third scenario is violent resistance, and we've seen that in the summer of 2020. We've seen that with Antifa. We've seen that in the streets of America over many years. Really, I mean, they just go to violent resistance in the streets and they try to draw us into something, right? The fourth scenario is provoking war, which is really where I think we're at right now, and then. The fifth scenario, and this is all, you can find this at generalflynn.com. The fifth scenario is the false flag war. And I actually think that there's a combination of all of them. So here's where I believe we're at, and I thought about this overnight, as I was coming out here to meet with Alex and to sit down with you and your great audience. So what might happen? I believe sitting here today, because number one, these people want to cause Donald Trump's agenda, which is principally domestic and economic, to completely collapse before he's even able to take office on Inauguration Day. I firmly believe that. I mean, the whole thing about getting rid of the illegals, the deportation campaign, his reemergence of the energy sector in this country, all the kinds of things that he wants to do, these people want nothing to do with that. They want to continue in their sort of seats of power and this money-making machine that they have, not only in the U.S. military-industrial complex, but also the global military-industrial complex, which is a huge, a multi-trillion-dollar enterprise that NATO has, that we pay a lot of money into. So where are we? And I think now, as I sit here, and we were talking about this prior to coming on here today, that I still believe that they're going to try to figure out a way to get rid of Biden. So all that said about Trump, all that said about Ukraine and NATO and all, I actually think that these people are going to take a hard look at how can they get rid of Biden. And I wrote about this, a couple of weeks back about, the 25th Amendment. If it's not the 25th Amendment, then we should, in fact, I think I came on your show and we talked about the impeachment process. There was, I think Congressman Self is one of them out of Texas, I believe, that put up impeachment proceedings. Of course, Congress goes on Thanksgiving recess, and we've seen nothing, right? I mean, we are marching toward war here. And, Alex, you used the phrase sleepwalking toward war. We are sleepwalking toward World War III. So I think that one of the things that they're contemplating is taking Biden out. That then puts Harris in, and whoever they make the vice president, and they can choose anybody. Kamala Harris, at that point in time, she can appoint anybody in the country to be the vice president. Then I think what they're going to do is they're going to contemplate their additional sort of subset scenarios, okay? And what are they? What might they be? Well, one might be a declaration of martial law. Another might be a implementation of a national security emergency order. And I can tell you that I wrote about this quite a while ago, probably 4 or 5 months ago. There are 43 of them. And I put this out on, I wrote an article. It was the second of a two-part article called Their Plans for Us. You can find it at generalflynn.com. And the subtitle is A State of Emergency. There are 43 states. There are 43 national emergency orders that can be implemented by the President of the United States. And not all of them deal with what we're talking about here specifically, but many of them deal with overseas scenarios, things that might happen if this, then that. And these are things that the President of the United States, many of these actually go back to the 60s. and they're still on the books. If one of them is initiated, it kicks in about 150 different laws. It sort of opens up the door, if you will. It opens up, another Pandora's box, if you will. So we have this situation where if this happens, so again, this is a scenario. It is not an unlikely scenario. People will, they'll say all kinds of crazy things. But so what I'm saying is that if they want to continue down this path, and I firmly believe that they want to continue down this path to draw us into a much greater World War III. We're already in the throes of it. We've seen all the back and forth these last couple of weeks. The only people that are really covering it, honestly, is right here, Alex Jones, and there have been a few others out there, but I think I flipped around the last couple of days, and I got up early this morning to just kind of complete my research, and I'm going through all the different I call them the opposition networks, the enemy networks, right? I mean, all the big ABC, CBS, NBC. Went through MSNBC, CNN, Fox, and a couple others to see what they were talking about. None of them are even talking about any of this stuff. I mean, this is such a dangerous situation that we are involved in. The other thing that I started to look at was alliances, the various alliances that we have. And one of the things that I'd done probably years ago was I did an entire roadmap of China and how is China building up itself to essentially be the great power of the 21st century. And remember, we're already in the third decade of the 21st century. So how does China relate to what is going on in this essentially regional war of Eastern Europe, which has now turned into World War III? And this is no kidding. Whether it's a new alliance that's formed with this northern group out of Europe, or whether it's this funny a relationship that's now developed between the United Kingdom and France, who are coming out with a lot of rhetoric about very, very offensive, provocative rhetoric. I mean, all these types of things that are going on, the exchange of these missiles. I mean, in the ATACMS, the ICBM, IRBM, it doesn't matter. They're all nuclear capable. The types of mines that they have put on that they're allowing to put on the battlefield. We've restricted those forever. So there are actions being taken, and you have to wonder, who the hell is in charge? I mean, where are these people? I mean, we've joked about Biden being, lost in the forest down there in South America, and Kamala Harris on leave, I think, out in Hawaii, or on vacation out in Hawaii. And so what might happen over these next couple of days? I think we're going to see additional provocations, and I mean extreme provocations. Does not appear like Zelensky wants to sit down or have any kind of reasonable conversation about any of the peace proposals that are on the table right now. I do believe, in fact, we know it, and I think you've talked about it, there is zero communications between the United States government and the Russian government right now, Putin and Biden. I mean, there has been no conversations. I used to work in the Pentagon. One of the jobs that I had, I was the senior intelligence officer in the Pentagon on the Joint Staff, and one of the responsibilities that we had was that there was an area downstairs in the Pentagon where we used to run these various exercises, and one of the places that I have been, and we actually did have to execute it one time, we had to use it one time, was the hotline. And when we went to use the hotline, it was between my boss at the time, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and his counterpart in Russia to be able to speak to each other. We did it up through various means, and they were able to communicate when certain things were happening. And I want to, again, we are trying to, and we've done a marvelous job of pushing Russia into the embrace of China. And China, that's why I talked about China, and this whole initiative of China that they have had for years now. And this goes back probably to the turn of the century here. So it goes back, 20, 25 years, and actually earlier when you start to think about their planning to get to where we are today. So China sees itself as the global superpower for this century, and they're marching in that, and they're marching very steadily, right? And they're moving along, and they're sticking to their plan, and they are going to try to achieve a set of alliances. I mean, just to give you an example, I think the One Belt, One Road initiative of China, which has everything to do with what we're talking about in Ukraine, has everything to do with keeping this power structure going, making the money that they need to make, changing the dynamics of the world that they want to change. They being these globalists out of the World Economic Forum and out of some of these other globalist organizations. And there are people that are running countries right now, like Macron out of France, Kieran's out of the United Kingdom, Trudeau out of Canada, as examples. So you have about 130 to 140 nations on the planet that represents about 75% of the world's population. China has some type of relationship or access into that many nations of the planet right now. That's been going on for almost 20 years. And we have not stunted that at all, because we've had globalists after globalists after globalists inside of our government, the government that Trump is now trying to take apart, right? They're going to have a very, very difficult time. I applaud everything that Elon is doing, that Vivek is doing, and that Trump wants to achieve. But I can tell you, I have great access still inside the government to people inside the Department of Defense, people inside the intelligence community, and there's good people in there. But I can tell you, they are already saying that the folks coming in, whether it's Ratcliffe over at the CIA or Tulsi up at DNI, that's the intel community sort of big blockers and tacklers, or Hegseth if he can get through confirmation at the Department of Defense. Most people don't know, Alex, and for your audience, but the largest intelligence component in the United States government is the Defense Department. Okay, the Defense Department has, when you look at in totality, it has most of the intelligence resources for the country. You have, of course, your CIA, and you have other outside or other external to the Department of Defense.
But the military is where the rubber meets the ground.
Military is where it's all at. And you're talking about all the four services have huge, particularly the Army, huge intelligence components. You got the Defense Intelligence Agency, you have National Security Agency, you have the National Geospatial Agency, you have the National Reconnaissance Office. I mean, these are giant chunks, right, of the Defense Department. And we have a Secretary of Defense right now. I haven't seen hide nor hair of any statements, anything coming out of there other than provocative and provocations that we.
What did you make of Austin, the Secretary of Defense, saying it's a bluff? I mean, the Russians. Yeah. The Russians didn't bluff when they took over Crimea in 2014 or 16. They weren't bluffing 3 years ago when they invaded, and they weren't bluffing when they fired that intermediate-range ballistic missile that Putin said was a test of successful nuclear weapon delivery system evading anti-missile systems.
Yeah, and so that was one of the scenarios I talked about, was this idea of conventional resistance. And so that is incorrect thinking, okay? Because there's this very misunderstood concept of deterrence, right? Deterrence. And deterrence has always been, because of mutual assured destruction, right? MAD, right? It's crazy, right? But mutual assured destruction and deterrence. Deterrence is something that is misunderstood. People will say, well, it's worked for a long time. But what we just witnessed was the firing of nuclear-capable weapon systems that the United States government gave to and allowed, and then had to have given the capability to be able to launch those to hit precise targets. ATACMS is a nuclear capable. It can fire two different types of warheads. One is nuclear. The other is, of course, conventional. And then the response, which was clear. I mean, it was an unambiguous response to demonstrate that, look, we can do the same thing. And if we decide to put nuclear ordnance on that ICBM or IRBM, we can do just the same thing, and we can actually hit targets, because the targets that were launched at by the ATACMS apparently were not hit. And so, what we have to do is we have to really look hard at what the Russian, and Alex has talked about this a long time now, but this Russian doctrine, this Russian nuclear doctrine. So Austin talking like that is incorrect. I mean, he may be getting briefed on that. I'm not going to sit here and say that, that what he's telling us is the truth or what they actually believe. But I'm going to sit here and warn everybody that this is not a time to think conventionally. This is a time to look at actions and look at capabilities and look at resources and look at how they are. I can tell you that an organization like the National Geospatial Agency, the National Security Agency, if they're doing their jobs, and this is where President Trump comes in, because as the incoming president-elect of the United States of America, he has full authority to get access to every single bit of intelligence that's being briefed to President Biden, if Biden's even getting briefed, if he's even awake. So he has the full authority and the full capability to be able to get that same intelligence, because it's supposed to be a peaceful transfer and transition of power from one president to another. I don't know if they're doing that. I don't know if they're giving him that kind of information. I do believe that one of the things that President Trump needs to be asking for right now, he needs to be asking for very specifically, get all that other garbage intel out of my way about, what's happening in South America, what's happening in the Pacific. Get all that out of their way, because it's all set up. And ask specifically questions about nuclear movements, not only in the Black Sea, in the Baltic, but on the ground, on the movement of missile capabilities and launch capabilities. Look at the communication systems. I want to see all that. Get the best nuclear weapons experts that we have in this country, which he has the full authority and the full responsibility to do. Get them down at Mar-a-Lago immediately. Have them sit down, brief your entire national security team. I understand that most of the national security team and most of the folks are still down there doing, more additional cabinet picks. But get them in there and get somebody with some level of knowledge. And I'm saying that we have people in the government that can do this, but there's also experts outside the government that in some cases either supported or worked in the government at one time. Get them down there now and start looking at the intelligence. And when they start to show you things, have them make you a believer that what you're actually being briefed on, what they're showing, is true. I mean, drill down right now, because once you lay that out, and now I'm talking directly to President-elect Trump down.
General Flynn, we've got a hard satellite break. You'll have the floor. This is so important. We're so blessed that you happen to be here today, right when this historic escalation of Biden saying we're looking to give nukes to Ukraine and then use that as the proxy, I guess, to start full world war. We'll be right back with General Flynn. It's the Alex Jones Show. Stay with us. Most people that research supplements and that are into health know that Irish sea moss and its benefits are documented and incredible. Well, our sponsor, the AlexJonesStore.com, happened to be able to get one of the top suppliers with the highest rated Irish sea moss to give them the authorization for private labeling. So now it's Alex Jones Ultimate Sea Moss, exclusively available at the AlexJonesStore.com. It is the ultimate superfood. The iodine, the trace minerals, the elements, the vitamins that are in this are incredible. They give you instant energy, instant focus, but as you take it for a few weeks, you feel the stamina, the libido, the mental clarity. It is a superfood. It is concentrated. So get Alex Jones Ultimate Sea Moss exclusively discounted at the AlexJonesStore.com. And listen to this. One bottle is 40% off. 3 bottles is 55% off. And again, 1 bottle is 40%. Get yours today at the AlexJonesStore.com. And I thank you for keeping us on the air.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. Waging war on corruption. It's Alex Jones, coming to you live from the front lines of the InfoWar.
All right, if you are a new viewer or new listener or just a regular listener, we have millions of new people tuning in every day. General Flynn is recognized, even in the Obama administration, as the smartest or most informed general who predicted in his secret briefings over the years everything that came true. China double-crossing, all of it. And so there's a lot of generals that just basically sit at desk all day. But he's a real general. He was the head intelligence officer in the military. And then, of course, Trump's top national security advisor and a number one target of the deep state when Trump got in 8 years ago. So he understands the lay of the land inside the executive branch and also inside the Pentagon, and then now traveling the country, waking the people up. And he laid out so many huge issues in the last 30 minutes that I want to have him continue with his overall briefing, and then I want to drill back in. But you came on last week and said we need to 25th Amendment him right now or impeach him right now. People didn't understand that means it goes to Congress, and now it's basically a trial of who's in there. Harris can be removed. Speaker Johnson's not much better, but better. We weren't saying put Kamala in, but they clearly are planning to do something like that and use this escalation, as you were saying, to somehow keep Trump out. So can you elaborate on the scenarios? And I know you have a lot of background in each scenario that would take an hour to go over each little piece, but they're pre-programming everywhere civil unrest and Kamala being in and all of this. And so what would they use to do that? What are the sub-scenarios of that? And then explain to people, because I know you're an expert on this, and I had constitutional experts on agreeing with you, and we have Congressman Massey and Senator Hawley and others saying the same thing. You don't just get rid of Biden during a 25th Amendment operation. You get rid of Harris as well. But barring that, how do we put pressure on the runaway train, on who is in command? Who are these unnamed officials saying, well, we're going to escalate so that there'll never be peace before Trump gets in? And then, as you said, you have this new northern group forming, England and France saying, if Trump tries to pull out, we'll just officially ourselves go to war. So holding us hostage to nuclear war as well. This is true madness. So the globalists aren't giving up. They've doubled down. Please continue, General Flynn.
Yeah. And they've absolutely doubled down. And the big why is to completely disrupt President Donald J. Trump's agenda going into this next presidency. I mean, upset it. I mean, his principal agenda item, when you really dig down deep, is this deportation campaign, closing our border, basically making the streets of America safer, getting our economy jump-started again, releasing the energy resources of this country. So all these domestic-focused issues which would take away from the power base of the globalists, which the power base of the globalists has everything to do with this continuation of perpetual war. It doesn't make any difference where it's at, and right now it's over in it's contained to a degree in Europe, and with this, but we are in the throes of World War III. As I said earlier, the United Kingdom and France have already said that they've sort of threatened Trump by saying, well, if you withdraw aid, we're gonna be sending troops in. Like, so what? So what if you do that? I mean, you think that Trump has to respond to that? And I think Trump will, and in fact, I know he'll be smart enough to know what to do. But a lot of people have asked since I started to talk about this last week, if you do the 25th Amendment and you get rid of Joe and Joe Biden and then you have Harris, you do an impeachment proceeding of President Biden and you have Harris, you have Harris. Okay, well, there is then the burden to put on her and what she might do. So Congress has to stay, awake at the switch here. And I mean, they're going to go on recess. I got all that, but you gotta, folks, Speaker Johnson, you got to pay attention to what is going on globally, because the foreign policy and the foreign wars are what the globalists want. They couldn't beat the mandate that Trump just had in November. They couldn't, the too big to rig, however you want to state it. Trump won, and it upset their momentum, and it upset their plans going into the remainder of this decade and further into this century. So the advent of World War III, we are in the midst of it. The exchange of very provocative nuclear-capable weapons have already occurred. Alex has done an amazing job over these last couple of weeks, really talking about, and I know he and I have talked about this, talking about the shift in Russia's nuclear policy, talking about first use, and I want people to, he asked me prior about Secretary Austin and what Secretary Austin's comments were, and I think that, what Putin did when he fired this missile, he gave what I call the ultimate warning. Okay, the ultimate warning, and there are really, and I kind of. I crafted a little bit of this, and again, people can go to generalflynn.com because I post quite a bit of this, or at Gen Flynn on X. But there's really two camps that are forming now, and I can see these two camps. And one, is within is in the sort of the Trump orbit, the greater Trump orbit. And there are some people that are, certainly the American people. And one of those camps is, I call it reason and peace, sort of the camp of reason and peace. Let's use good common sense. Let's use reason in what is happening. Let's try to calm things down. Let's try to figure out, what is a negotiated peace look like? What will a negotiated peace look like? And there are all kinds of different avenues and options on the table right now to take or to apply for a peace agreement. But the biggest thing that has to happen right now is there's got to be a ceasing of the killing that is occurring. That's camp number one. The second camp, and I call it the camp of unconsciousness or connivance, okay, that will lead to war. The camp of unconsciousness or connivance. The unconsciousness component of that camp is sitting in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue right now. There's an unconscious, Alex uses the word sleepwalking. There's an unconsciousness that is occurring that you have to say, okay, part of that unconsciousness is a conventional thinking that no one's going to use a nuclear weapon here. Well, let me tell you, folks, what I just said about 5 minutes ago, the ultimate warning message from Vladimir Putin not to Ukraine, but to the West, to say, hey, folks, look, we are not, I have a responsibility. Now I'm putting my feet, which I've had to do for my entire military career, was to put my feet into the boots of our enemies, okay? So my analysis of where President Putin is at is he's got to sit there with his own people and say, we are going to protect the sovereignty of our country. We are going to protect the safety and security of our citizenry. And I can't allow a nuclear-capable, offensive, provocative weapon to be fired into Russia without some type of response, without some type of adjustment in my military and in my diplomatic posture. If everybody listened to, and people need to do this, you need to listen to the messaging coming out of Russia. And I'm really now speaking to not just, the audience, Alex's great audience. I'm speaking to people at Mar-a-Lago, this unconscious crowd that's in Washington, D.C., part of the deep state, that is going to sit there and go, oh yeah, we're going to keep pushing this thing. We want this thing. Look, folks, we're talking about nuclear war. To even use the word nuclear, this is where, I kind of, to me, it's like, okay, slow down, take a deep breath. This is where the world needs to stop and say, look, we're talking about nuclear, the use of nuclear weapons. And I want to tell people that you're going to hear words like phrases like tactical nuclear weapon. And let me just tell you, there is no such thing. When somebody says tactical nuclear weapon, and it's written about, there's doctrine about use of tactical nukes. We talk about tactical nukes on the battlefield because they have, the devastating effects from a tactical nuke. But these are nuclear weapons that still have like 50 times more power than what the United States dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end the war in the Pacific against the imperialist Japanese. So, these are very, very powerful weapons. We have just had both sides exchange a weapon system, ATACMS, and then what the Russians responded with, that are both nuclear capable. The ultimate, I'm going to say this again, the ultimate warning signal to the West by Vladimir Putin was when he fired those missiles, and they went after certain targets, and that will change in a heartbeat. If we start to see now, because one of the scenarios that I talk about is a false flag. And it got me thinking about the false flag thing was really this cutting of this cable between, I think it was Sweden and Finland up in the Black Sea, or up in the Baltic Sea. And, there's all kinds of things that are happening sort of in the shadows globally when you're talking about great powers and the competition between great powers and how we operate on the world stage to be able to, to have this competitive atmosphere, particularly military forces arrayed against military forces. Well, right now, is there a heightened alert in our country? Are our nuclear capabilities, our triad, our ballistic missiles, our aircraft, our submarine fleet, are they at a heightened status? I haven't heard anything. We haven't seen anything. We have not had any emergency alerts or anything like that. I mean, so there are things that are not well oiled. Okay, we have a machinery in our country right now because we've spent 20, 25 years in these low-intensity conflict-type wars, these irregular wars, these wars against terrorists, and we have an entirely conventional capability. And I can tell you, I know this system, and I know the exercise system that we have on a daily basis that's run out of the Pentagon. They're very capable people that do that, but you have to have the next levels of leadership be involved and be responsive. So let's take it back to the potential idea for getting rid of Joe Biden, because I think I just feel in my gut, total speculation, but it's a scenario that it's a possibility that they are going to get rid of Joe Biden. And I just feel that before, probably in the next couple of weeks here. So that brings in Kamala. Everybody goes, well, we don't want Kamala. We don't want the 25th Amendment. We don't want to impeach Biden. Well, you know what? You put Kamala Harris in the hot seat, and Congress. This is where Congress, and thank God we have the House. But I don't think that the House is doing enough. And this gets to Trump's conversations with his team going forward, and the idea that I still believe that there are going to be attempts on Trump's life. Speculation to a degree. We've already seen a couple. These people want ultimate power, and ultimate power only exists when you have total control of the United States government and the United States of America.
And they've more than signaled, General.
Oh, big time. Big time.
With the escalation of the missiles. And then Putin, as you know, when Biden first talked about it 2 months ago, he said, if you move those missiles up, they can be nuclear tipped. We don't know if you're firing nukes at us. Right. If we see that, we may go ahead and nuke Europe. And then now back to the ICBM test or the intermediate range ballistic missile. What did Putin come out and say? He said, this is a test. We evaded your anti-missile systems. We can hit you with MERV technology with nukes. So that was another warning. And he said more warnings are coming. Yeah. What do you expect? You predicted.
Well, here's what I wrote. Here's what I wrote this morning. And I'll read this quick sentence. The deep state will have fulfilled their fatal objectives, okay, which is really to keep us in war and to create World War III, the conditions of World War III, which we are in. So the deep state will have fulfilled all of their fatal objectives, a devastating but controlled, this is really important, but a controlled military commitment, okay? And without the risk of annihilation, especially of our own national territory. This is what these people, they will think like this. So they're, again, like an Austin kind of making his comment, the question you had for me before. There's a very conventional mindset because we've had
normalcy bias.
We've had none of these kinds of conversations for decades, right? And we've had relationships. We've worked with the Russians from back in the 90s of what's called the Partners for Peace program.
So there's true naivete institutionally.
It's incredible. What has happened, the bigger strategic picture, and this is where I think, from Trump's perspective, and everybody knows this, but from Trump's perspective, this administration, and frankly, Obama did the same thing. They have pushed Russia towards China. And that is not something that we want. What we want is we want to figure out this sort of greater European mass, okay? And this is the United States of America as we figure out sort of the developed world, if you will, even though that world is changing quite a bit because of what I call sort of this Chinese rising, right? China rising, as we've talked about many, many times. When China has access to or ownership of or partial ownership of about 80% of the ports around the world, okay? So the largest ports in the world, China either has direct access, ownership, or partial ownership of some of the largest.
And they've got most of the rare earth minerals.
And the rare earth elements that are out there, the direct access or ownership of some of the major lines of communication, Suez Canal and the Panama Canal.
And Xi issued red lines a week ago for the first time, not just saying Taiwan they'll go to war, but they said if you get in the way of our development, which means their hegemonic economic takeover.
Right, and the alliances that China has formed in South America, right, using Venezuela, using Bolivia, using Brazil. I mean, the alliances that they have formed in Africa, the alliances that they have formed in Europe, the alliances that they have formed with the BRICS nations. So China is like sitting back. And you know what you don't hear, folks? You don't hear China, China, China. You hear Russia, Russia, Russia. Because for the better part of really since the end of World War II, and we started it on the Cold War, and everybody goes, well, the Cold War ended, and everybody remembers the very famous phrase that Obama used against Romney. That enemy's sort of gone. That is billions. Actually, it's probably tens of trillions of dollars that the United States government has invested or spent and continues to spend over time, over probably the better part of 50 years.
And military complexes always tend to try to fight the last war.
Exactly. And so that sort of structure that has been created and now continues to exist, and money keeps flowing, right? Money flow. I mean, NATO at the end of the Cold War was like 16 nations. Right now, it's like I think we're up to like 26. That's one of the criteria that Russia has always talked about.
So it is a runaway train.
It's so out of control, and I want Trump to stay protected. So this is to you, Donald Trump, down in Mar-a-Lago. You're in a great spot right down there. Keep yourself very secure. Be very careful that nobody knows what X you're going to go on. If you're going to go travel someplace.
I've noticed he's not traveling a lot. That's
And I firmly believe that he has got, because they're not giving him all of the resources that he should have when he, in fact, if he decides to travel, nor the resources that he would have if he was the president of the United States. He should have access to and the authority to apply any resource that the federal government, that the United States government has, because he is the duly elected by
that was my next question.
President of the United States.
We know early on he and Musk called Zelensky and others. Now, I've been told by sources, and you talk to him all the time, that he's doing shadow diplomacy there. But you're saying he's the president-elect. He has the power for the briefings, all of it. Now, he's been uncharacteristically silent in the last week. And I'm not going to second-guess him, but maybe you can tell us what you think or know is going on. And separately, we had Rutte, the head of NATO, going there a few days ago. Can you tell us what's happening behind the scenes? Or?
Yeah, well, what I'll say is that NATO is all for what is happening in Ukraine right now. I mean, NATO wants to, the NATO leadership has been talking about, the Secretary General has been talking about the use of nuclear weapons. I mean, the talk of nuclear weapons is absolutely, should be off the table. And we should have people talking to each other.
It's beyond reckless.
It's hugely reckless. I mean, these are weapon systems that, again, when the cat gets out of the bag there, I mean, you can't put that back in there. And so what we don't want to do is we don't want to go to a place, and I want to remind people, historically, and history matters, World War I, which at the time was called the Great War, was started because it was actually a regional conflict, and it turned into a world war. Okay? So the regional conflict, because people just tripped over each other, and they didn't have the good communications that we have today, although they still had communication.
And it escalated.
It escalated like that. And once it started, I mean, the devastation, the Great
Britain lost an
entire generation of men.
General, what do you make of this is going on for 2.5 years? They admit Biden doesn't ever talk to Putin. No one's talking to them. But Milley, on January 6th, calls the head Chinese general and says, don't worry, I'm really the president. I got the nuke codes. When Trump wasn't even thinking about China then. Right. So they can talk to the Chinese and say, don't worry, we're in charge. Trump isn't. But then they don't talk to the Russians.
Yeah. And I think that this is where people need to understand, the audience needs to understand, America needs to understand, the world needs to understand that the Chinese, okay, the CCP, have so infiltrated the United States of America. They've infiltrated our government. They've infiltrated our non-governmental institutions, education system. They have bought up real estate all over the place. We've seen lots of reports about that. They've bought up companies. They come in as a Chinese entity, but then they really smart about how they use our system, and they create these organizations and government and non-governmental organizations that come in to own stuff. And so, and it's not just that, it's the infiltration. It's the infiltration of our ideas. It's the infiltration of the decision-making. And it's how they have been so steadily climbing sort of in the ranks, so to speak, to achieve where they're at right now. Does China have problems? They certainly do. And Trump fully understands it. That's why what Trump did in his first administration was go right at China. And what he's going to have to do, he's going to have to go right at China. And we need to draw these other giant powers. India is another one. We have to be very careful with the nation of India, with the country of India, to where we don't want India to kind of stay in a place where they're neutral. We want India to
Yeah, it's really going into Russia's orbit.
Yeah, they really are. When you talk about the BRICS, right? The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, plus another, 25, 30 nations that have partnered with them. So,
well, let me ask you this. What do we do right now, General Flynn, to, I think of your radio listener, General Michael Flynn, former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, he's here with us graciously today. Whole other hour, your calls, your comments, your questions coming up. What do we do as just average citizens other than pray and say we don't want World War III and we support President? We call Speaker Johnson's office, say you better stop. We call Lindsey Graham's office. What do we do to say, hey, who are the officials in the New York Times saying, hey, we're getting ready to give nukes to Ukraine? Just beyond insane. What do we need to do? And then what does Congress need to do? And again, where is Trump? I'm not putting him down. I know behind the scenes he's doing some diplomacy, but he needs to come out and speak out about this.
Yeah, we always say there's one government at a time during these periods of transition, and people watch what happened to me, right? To calm a situation down that could have gotten vastly worse back in 2016. So people can go, they can go examine that if they want to examine that. My very famous phone call with the Russian ambassador to calm the situation down, so he didn't start World War III while Obama, which is what he wanted to do, he wanted to get Russia's ire up. So. We have one government at a time. I understand that. But that doesn't mean that President Donald J. Trump can't pick up the phone and start calling around to people and saying, look, folks, this is what my agenda is going to be. And it's not going to be nuclear war. It's not going to be in support of World War III. So stop it. And he needs to talk to Biden. He needs to talk to Kamala. He needs to, get the counterparts that he has chosen, even though the tough thing is many of them are not confirmed. He's got National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who's came out with, a calming statement. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Mike's had different, ideas about the wars in the.
But at least
Europe.
He's de-escalating.
He's de-escalating. So Trump, because he's in that position, he is the duly elected. J.D. Vance as the duly elected Vice President of the United States. There has to be communications right now. So
General, this is important. We got to go to break. Stay there. Yeah. I want you to have the floor on this when we come back. Then we'll start taking some questions from X, also probably some calls, specifically quick questions for General Flynn. Please remember, GeneralFlynn.com. He needs your support. He came here on his own dime. He travels the whole country. Great books, T-shirts, ball caps. I went out and ate Mexican food yesterday with my wife and youngest daughter wearing my General Flynn hat. Got a compliment. We love General Flynn. I was eating at Chewy's restaurant. The point is support him. He needs support just like I do. We are your emissaries for Americana and freedom and justice and security and American values and stopping World War III. GeneralFlynn.com. Be sure and support him there. Get his film that is amazing, incredible. It's all there at GeneralFlynn.com. And then please keep me on air. Yeah, Elon Musk just filed a lawsuit in my support against the Democrats today. He's fully in our case. That's great. The cavalry's coming. But we sell supplements and T-shirts and books and things. That's how we fund ourselves. I'm not a regular show. I got the deep state coming after me, trying to put me in prison, just like they tried to do to him. So we're your champions. Not saying I'm the best, but the enemy sees me as that. I can't do this without you. So I'm fighting for you. Please fight for us. Keep sharing the articles, the videos, the live feeds. You're the Paul Revere's, but also go to thealexjonesstore.com and get the amazing supplements like the Superfood Ultimate Sea Moss, the great Trump apparel, and more at thealexjonesstore.com. Hour number 3 with General Michael Flynn. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
A few weeks ago when I saw Elon Musk in Pennsylvania with Trump at Butler, and he had that dark MAGA hat on, I said, we've got to have our own. And we've come out with it. Yeah, we can put one out that, just says Make America Great Again, and that's available at thealexjonesstore.com. But I personally like this one. Murdered out, it fits great, and it funds the InfoWar and supports President Trump. And if you don't like Murdered Out, we got it white on black. So get yours right now, and a bunch of other great designs of hoodies and T-shirts and top-of-the-line supplements that all fund the Second American Revolution at thealexjonesstore.com. Let me show you a few more of these. Now that the FDA admits fluoride does lower your IQ and give you cancer and infertility, it's a great time to wear one of these beautiful hats, and it's a great way to start a conversation and warn people. Here's the classic Make America Great Again Murdered Out, and we've got the Save the Frogs, over 50 designs, all at thealexjonesstore.com, and it keeps us on air, and it spreads the word. Please go to alexjonesstore.com and get your Patriot gear.
Rome had always been an inclusive society that welcomed immigrants. Immigrants were given employment in the Roman army, but were welcome only if they assimilated. Of course, Rome still fell. What makes anyone think that the United States and Europe can absorb violent, non-assimilating immigrants from all over the world, with the result not ultimately collapsing 21st century civilization?
Machen Berlin zu Bagdad.
The drug crisis in the United States continues to escalate. This year, more than 100,000 Americans died due to a drug overdose. It is now one of the top 10 reasons for deaths in America.
Studies show taxpayers are being billed about $1,600 a year per immigrant, and that immigrants use 33% more cash welfare than American citizens. Similarly, about 63% of non-citizen households use at least one form of public welfare, while only about 35% of native-born American households are on welfare. The architects of this collapse know full well what they are doing.
We hear frequently that people are at the center of sustainable development. And we know that, by definition, people are at the center of populations. Well, from these two simple observations, it follows that an understanding of population patterns and trends will be essential for the successful implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
We cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct.
Exposed by James O'Keefe and his people at O'Keefe Media Group, Alvin Bragg received massive numbers of campaign finance contributions from this network of individuals who had been identified as Smurfs.
FEC data shows that some senior citizens across the U.S. have been donating thousands of times per year.
You did donate to ActBlue, right?
Yes, once in a while, yes.
What about $18,850?
I doubt that.
18,672 different contributions that total an amount of $170,221.
No.
The investigation into Alvin Bragg also helped to uncover the use of prepaid credit and debit cards in the structuring of the campaign finance contributions and the payment to ballot harvesting mules. Illicit campaign finance funds were also identified in the campaigns of the Wisconsin Supreme Court race of Janet Protasewicz and Senator Ralph Warnock, and spread to states such as Missouri, Maryland, Wisconsin, Arizona, and then into every single state in the United States.
We have videotape of Jackie Amos going into boxes, bringing in thumb drives, bringing in ballots to be inserted into machines. This is the opportunity to stop corruption and to stop fraud when it comes to elections in the state of Mississippi.
This is what Fani Willis and the Democrats have created in Atlanta. Boarded up and abandoned homes everywhere. Crack houses for blocks and blocks.
Fulton County Jail in Atlanta. Another inmate died in custody. 5 inmates in the last month, all black. Why? Now let me see here. You got a black mayor, you got a black prosecutor, you got a black sheriff, and black people are dying at the jail. Where's Al Sharpton? Where's Kamala Harris? Where's Joe Biden? Nowhere to be found. Where's Black Lives Matter?
222 contributions to Atlanta DA Fani Willis's campaign had zero donor information, while one of the out-of-state Fani Willis campaign contributors had made over 9,178 individual contributions just at the federal level since 2018. Meanwhile, this nationwide money laundering RICO enterprise is making more and more contributions to PACs, and these PACs in turn are financing local candidates. This RICO operation is at the heart of the Democrat Party's ability to retain power. A full-fledged organized crime operation with strong ties to a myriad of Soros-connected organizations operating within a one-world government agenda framework to destroy the United States. Now delivered on a silver platter to an unwilling Congress, ushering in its own demise. John Bauer.
listening to an Infowars.com frontline report. If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
At Jen Flynn on X, be sure and follow him there. General Michael Flynn is our guest. He graciously, because he's been coming on so much with us, he's very busy, but he's one of the only people that has this level of understanding. He's been joining us once or twice a week in the last month, and the average interview gets about 40 million views on X. People really want to hear from General Flynn. Of course, people listen to him and watch him by the tens of millions as well on his X and his own events and interviews he does. But he's here with us, and I wanted to play a special report in the last 5 minutes because some stations don't carry that. We're on over 450 stations. We've gained over 100 the last few months. The Streisand effect of them trying to take us off air has really backfired. So I wanted to get back to all the radio stations so everybody can hear what he's about to say. Now, he said something to me during that 5-minute break that he said he'll be willing to say on air here. And he's not trying to scare you. I totally agree with him. I think you're going to agree with him. But he's an expert in these things, taking all the data and collating it in. These military moves towards nuclear war and the missiles and trying to give nukes to Ukraine and all of this are not signs. They're giant flares or red flags that the globalists are not going to give up power and that they are intending to do some really nasty stuff, not just escalate things into deep World War III and potential nuclear war. He got interrupted at the end of the hour getting into what Trump, he believes, should be doing right now, what we should be doing, what his surrogates like the Vice President, J.D. Vance, should be doing. So, General, you made a very cryptic statement to me and then elaborated during the break. If you can repeat that and elaborate and then get into what we should all be doing. And he's saying this not to scare you, but to create real urgency because he's a very calm guy. We all need to be praying for President Trump right now because there's obvious peace to all of this that they're going to be trying to do. And you said in the next few weeks, General Flynn.
Yeah, I do think that as we go into this season of Thanksgiving, right, the greatest threat after this wonderful mandate presidential victory that President Donald J. Trump and his family just had, the greatest threat is the risk of a third assassination attempt. And I do believe that it's gut at this point, but it's based on what we have already seen and the kinds of craziness behind it, the types of security arrangements that he's had, the lack of, frankly, of trust that the American people have in the security arrangements that are currently that were provided to candidate Trump, now President-elect Trump. It's still not there. That in the next couple of weeks, I firmly believe that there is going to be another attempt at this man's life. And I hate to talk like that, but it is he represents Trump by himself as the president-elect again. He represents an existential threat to the globalists. Because if he's able to achieve what he wants to achieve through guys like Elon, through this Doge or whatever you want to call it, and through some of the ideas that he has, and he's already demonstrated that he's fully capable of doing them while he was under extraordinary pressure during the time that he was the 45th president. If he gets into office and he's able to get his agenda into high gear, right, then it could be the end of the deep state. And it should be. It could be the end of this globalist movement to take over basically the world and what they call this New World Order, which has been talked about for over 100 years now. So, stuff. This is real stuff. And people need to understand that Donald J. Trump is one of these very, very, he's one of these great captains of history, these great leaders that emerge only once in a millennium in many cases in world history. And I'm talking about going back, hundreds of years, right? When you think about the sort of, I call them the arcs of history. The first one was the Revolutionary War. That was George Washington, where thank God we had a leader like him. The second arc of history was Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. We had the great leadership of Abraham Lincoln, a man that lost like 7 or 8 political races, and then finally became president of the United States at the right moment in history to be able to save our country and keep it united. We went through a whole bunch of, the next 150, 170 years or so, but nothing that we went through from the time of the Civil War, where the end of the Civil War till right now, was there an existential threat to our way of life here? Yep. Maybe we lost to the Huns in World War I, or we lost to the Germans and the Japanese in World War II. There would be a different set of conditions, but it wasn't existential to the geography of the United States of America or to our way of life. This is existential, and that's Donald J. Trump. In this third arc of U.S. history, Donald J. Trump represents an existential threat to these globalists that are trying to take over. And so what he's got to do, so this assassination attempt that I do believe that they're not done trying to do this, and I wrote about this about a week or so ago as one of the scenarios. I think that we're looking at something in the next couple of weeks here. So he has got to, I love the fact that he's operating and transitioning and functioning out of Mar-a-Lago. I do believe when I say be very careful for President Trump. So now I'm talking to him, and I know that he understands this. Be very careful about where you have to go. Because if you have to leave those compounds, and I know you're not a bunker mentality type of guy, you want to get out there amongst the people, because that's why you are who you are, and why the
But that's the desperate bad guy's obvious next move.
Yeah, it is.
You're willing to start World War III, and they're trying to kill him twice.
So to just take a minute to just say what should Trump be doing based on what we've just talked about over the last hour. So he needs to get his national security team around him right now, which I know he has. He needs to make some phone calls. He's got to call Biden up. He's got to call up Harris. Those are just sort of the protocols to say, hey, look, guys and gal, what the hell are you guys doing? I would actually have those members of his national security team with him talking to the exact same group of people, because, folks, we are going to get into power here in the 20th of January, and we are going to move this country forward. But that conversation has to happen now. And then if Biden refuses to talk to Putin, if he refuses to talk to the people that are running this, that are this globalist crowd, or to China, because China has a big foot in the door here, that he ought to tell Biden, I'm going to make those calls, because I'm going to have to assume this problem if, in fact, it continues to move down this path that we're looking at right now, which is we're looking at World War III right now. The exchange of these things, the exchange of the discussions that have been having over the last week. And this is where I think Congress definitely needs to step back in. They're getting ready to go on a recess here. And I think Trump ought to talk to Mike Johnson and just say, to Speaker Johnson, just say, hey, look, you guys have got to up the rhetoric here a little bit. We've got to put pressure on the White House. We can't not allow, the amount of money, the amount of weaponry that has been given to Ukraine, with all of the troubles that we have in our own country, is to me is just, it kills me. It breaks my heart to see that we continue to waste money over in Ukraine when we have so many problems here domestically. And that's why President Trump won. So now I do believe that he's going to have to step in.
By the way, that just broke. Yeah. You warned of this an hour ago. UK, France, more troops to Ukraine.
Yeah, there you go. This is unbelievable. So
this is moving quickly.
This is moving. And this gets back to the comment about Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. These people they tend to think conventionally, or they tend to think, no way in the world is somebody going to do that. And I call it the ultimate warning, okay? Putin sent the world the ultimate warning when he fired those missiles in response to the very provocative offensive attack by the ATACMS into his territory.
Now let's show that intermediate range ballistic missile raining down on that Ukrainian weapons factory depot last Wednesday. Let's show that on screen for people. Go ahead, General.
Yeah, and that warning, and like I say, it's the ultimate warning, because it's not necessarily just a response to a tit for tat, like you call it, right? This was a warning, and it is a warning to the West, folks. And guess what the alliance is that's formed against the West? And the West is really not in a place right now. I can tell you our military is definitely not in a place right now to be able to respond to these kinds of activities. If we do have to go to a major conventional war over in Europe, which we're going to be drawn into it because of the whole Charter 5 of the NATO Charter. I mean, all of these things. These people are trying to draw us to World War III.
So this is a precious time we have right now, and I'm going to say this. Let's put the tweet up that Trump just put out yesterday, and I hadn't seen this. I said, General, 2 days after they tried to kill Trump on July 13th, I said, next they're going to claim Iran's behind it, or behind future attacks where they can kill him, blame Iran, and get rid of him and have war. Trump, I'm not criticizing him, but nobody's perfect. he comes out and buys into that. Now he bought into it again, saying, I'm getting total threats that Iran's trying to kill me right now. Iran has said, no, we don't want to kill you. We don't want to get in a war. They don't have the motive for this. And Trump, or whoever wrote that tweet, I know he writes most of his tweets, is saying, quote, big threats on my life by Iran. The entire U.S. military is watching and waiting. Moves are already made by Iran that didn't work out, but they will try again. Not a good situation for anyone. I am surrounded by more men, guns, and weapons than I have ever seen before. Thank you to Congress for unanimously approving far more money for Secret Service. 0 no votes, strictly bipartisan. Nice to see Republicans and Democrats get together for something. An attack on a former president is a death wish for an attacker. And so that's September. Actually, I said yesterday, it's a month. So, but I mean,
so
hopefully,
how do you do it? So okay, so that's a great statement by Trump, and it's it's a righteous statement, right? And he's right to make it, and then the kinds of qualities and capabilities and things and such that they put around the capacity to increase the capacity of his security. Okay, I got all that. So how? I mean, what would they do? So obviously, it's like, oh, blame a foreign entity. So then you have, if in fact something does happen, or if there's even an attempt, then it's like, okay, we point the fingers, it's Iran or it's Russia. It's going to be somebody over there. So one of these things this is why I think that these assassination attempts that were well known to the American people here, these last two, they got so close with. Even, I mean, when you think about the first two assassination attempts, which have been well reported on, they were able to get so close. So people don't realize who are the type of people that are behind this. So there's people inside of our government. There's people outside of our government. There are people that are working with overseas partners to make this, and this gets to things like assassination attempts, false flags, the deception, the ability to narratively project that it's going to be over here when in fact nobody's looking. You go around the right, but because nobody's looking at the left here, right? So yeah, it's that sort of bait and switch type attitude that we got to be careful of. And I think that because I know that there are people that are former members of the U.S. government that are out there right now, and you got to watch where they travel around.
John
the world.
Brennan.
Nobody ever reports on these guys. You might see a clip, you might see if you're really, if you're reading the kinds of news outlets and things that I get reports on, you see, so and so showed up in Serbia, so and so showed up in Germany, and they're having these conversations in these small groups, and you kind of go, what the hell are these people talking about? What are they doing? And what are they acting on behalf of the United States government? So. I mean, and
it's easy for those that don't know. You go out, have a multinational corporation through another group, fund a government that funds another group, who then funds mercenaries that don't know, right. And they're told, here's $1 million, you get $50 million if you kill Trump. Then they go hire other subgroups, so there's plenty of plausible deniability.
The most important thing right now is communications. Open, honest, and brutally honest communications between leaders. And the leader that we have just elected is President Donald J. Trump. President-elect Donald J. Trump, going to be the 47th president of the United States of America, God willing. And he has got to be able to open up communications lines right now. Because Joe Biden, we've already seen that he's not going to do it. Harris, she's on vacation in wherever, and she's incapable of doing it. I mean, I do believe that.
Well, General, what about public statements from Trump? Because,
I think that so that's a great lead for me, because one of the things that I have provided, and I think that in President Trump's case, because we're going into, I call it this sort of season of Thanksgiving. Okay, Thanksgiving is a national. It's only celebrated here in the United States of America. Okay,
a perfect time to call for world peace.
An incredible moment in this historic period of time, with a historic victory, a historic person in the presence of Donald J. Trump. The times that we face, we are in this season of Thanksgiving, and I believe that right now, and I think Trump can do this because everything that he says is so monitored, and every single world leader. Hell, most of them are on X because of Trump, or they've joined True Social. They have somebody on True Social because of that. But anytime Trump puts something out, so So, and he does it so smartly that his messaging, I think, right now has to be so above all of the fray. So all of us that are out here talking about World War III, and we're in the throes of it, it's like we want to take this thing, we want to take the decibel levels down. And the way to do that is really good, open, brutally honest communications that says the right things and talks about how I, as the incoming president of the United States of America, here is my agenda. And my agenda starts with fighting for peace, right? Building towards peaceful relationships, building towards, making sure that we are going to act honestly, maturely on the world stage with partners and allies around the world. I have an agenda that I must, because the American people just demanded it, that I must take care of at home. But don't think for a second that America is not going to continue to be a great power, on the world stage, and we're going to meet our responsibilities. We can do all these things. Donald J. Trump has already proven with his last administration, he's already proven that he's very, very capable of doing this. That's why they have to do something to either get rid of this man or to change the nature of the environment.
So he must carpe diem, seize the moment. And again, I'm not criticizing Trump. I know he's doing shadow diplomacy. Right. Rutt's been there, but obviously.
And he might be. I mean, Alex, as we sit here today, because I know that a lot of people listen to this, a lot. And I think that Trump is one, and I know he'll see he'll see stuff. And he doesn't have to have Mike Flynn tell him what to do. He knows what to do.
No, I know that. But I mean, a week and a half ago when this all cranked up, we put out the video of him a year ago saying this is going to escalate to World War III. We need to stop this. Don't give missiles.
But I want, and
that was old, and it got hundreds of millions of views. Literally on our channel, over 100-something million views, the 3 versions. Yeah. My issue is, and I'm not second guessing, I'm just saying my listeners and us watching this, we're watching and saying he has this unique power and this position. And maybe he's waiting to right before Thanksgiving, but this is escalating so fast. I'm just on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, and I think that what I was going to say, and I didn't mean to cut into you there, but
no, please.
What I want people to now, I'm really just sort of talking to the wider audience. The audience that is seeing this now or hearing this now on radio, or will see this, as the internet, puts stuff out. I want people to understand, because I see it every single day. Everybody is concerned about what's going on and what the hell is going on and anybody doing anything. So the fact that we're having this very reasonable, very common sense discussion right now about what to do and the kinds of actions that we would want to see out of somebody, some leader of some level, and in this case we're talking about President Donald J. Trump. The fact that we're doing that, trust me, if we're thinking about it, we're talking about it, and we are, they're doing the same thing. So I want the American people to know that there are reasonable people out here. There are good people with good common sense that understand the situation as it is.
Trump is not asleep at the switch.
He's definitely not. And he, he's got his team together. They've done some great things with all of their picks for various cabinet choices and working all that. And I watched some of the shows yesterday, and it looks like he's going to get great support by members of the Senate to confirm, everybody that he wants in there. And that's all well and good. And that's going to continue to move that process along. I mean, none of that can happen until.
But that makes it even more a probability they're going to try to kill him.
Exactly, because they're going to see all this. Always remember, and in military jargon, we say the enemy has a vote. Okay, the enemy has a vote, and so I stress that the way I said it.
Yeah, they're not going to sit on the sidelines.
They are not going to sit on the sidelines. They are not sitting on the sidelines. They are on this field of battle that we are in, sort of metaphorically here. We are in a wartime environment, physical in the case of what we've been talking about. But this exchange of all these, these nuclear capable missiles, the rhetoric that we see, this latest rhetoric coming out of Europe on the deployment of troops. I mean, so all of this matters because the enemies that do exist, these alliances that exist, and this always happens in warfare. You start to look at the structure and the organizations and the nations, particularly in world wars, right? You look at the nations that are starting to line up on either side. And keep in mind that...
That's where I was going next. The North Korean troops, You think it's true that they're actually in Ukraine? I mean, will China fully come in?
Yeah, I've seen the reports on the North Korean troops, and I've seen actually one was sent to me the other day that showed that they were just like 100,000. I don't think I'm not there yet. I don't want to believe that yet. Nobody's been. It's kind of like, an old general. He's deceased now that fought in the Korean War. He told me, that the Chinese were crossing the Yalu River, and he was up there. He was a company commander up there fighting, and the guys back in the headquarters were saying, "Hey, there's no Chinese intervening." He actually got on a helicopter. He flew up to the front lines and he captured a Chinaman, and he brought him back and dumped him off at the 8th Army headquarters.
That's like a million of them came across.
That guy's name was Cavazos. He's great. He was a legend. But he did it, and to say, hey, there's Chinese. We're fighting the Chinese, right?
He's like, here's one.
So what we have to, again, we're going to pay very close attention to these things. If there are, in fact, North Korean troops being brought in, that just shows you, because the North Korea doesn't do anything unless China says to do it. And, so we'll see. Well, I'm not there yet with the North Korean troops. There are their advisors. The North Korea now has nuclear-capable systems, weapon systems, that are very good. And we have to be conscious of that.
So this is China through North Korea sticking its toe in the water.
This is China. Okay, everything is this century, folks. We're in the third decade of it. Everything is about China. China, their plan is to be, and it's very soon. That's why Xi has declared himself president for life. Everything is about China
and drawn his red lines,
becoming the world superpower, the number one world superpower this century, and they're already on the march. Had we lost this last election by 2030, it would be done. So. And I said earlier,
and the State Department is saying North Koreans are now, at least on the border. Stay right there, General. Let me interrupt you. We're going to take a few calls and comments on Spaces coming up with General Flynn. The number to join us is 877-789-2539. First-time callers, quick questions or comments for General Flynn. We're going to move to the next person. 877-789-2539. 877-789-2539. We'll take 5 or 6 questions on the phones and 5 or 6 questions on X Spaces. Because the limited time, we're just going to go to you quickly. And General Flynn, you're so gracious to come to town. I heard, I haven't asked you in person yet, are you going to be able to go in the war room today with Owen?
I can if he's here.
He's here. He would love to have you.
I have a little bit of time.
How long are you here?
A little bit of time. I actually have a flight out of here later this afternoon, so early evening. So
perfect. We'll ride the airport, get you some lunch
too. The airport's right here. So
but GeneralFlynn.com, GeneralFlynn.com. Be sure.
Owen should have front and center in the new Washington press room there.
Most people that research supplements and that are into health know that Irish sea moss and its benefits are documented and incredible. Well, our sponsor, the AlexJonesStore.com, happened to be able to get one of the top suppliers with the highest rated Irish sea moss to give them the authorization for private labeling. So now it's Alex Jones Ultimate Sea Moss, exclusively available at the AlexJonesStore.com. It is the ultimate superfood. The iodine, the trace minerals, the elements, the vitamins that are in this are incredible. They give you instant energy, instant focus, but as you take it for a few weeks, you feel the stamina, the libido, the mental clarity. It is a superfood. It is concentrated. So get Alex Jones Ultimate Sea Moss exclusively discounted at the AlexJonesStore.com. And listen to this. 1 bottle is 40% off. 3 bottles is 55% off. And again, 1 bottle is 40%. Get yours today at the AlexJonesStore.com. And I thank you for keeping us on the air.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
And it's time for humanity to stand up in the info war and say, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this, but you want to fight, you better believe you got one!
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
General Flynn's with us another 30 minutes. We're about to take your calls and a few X Spaces comments. General Flynn and I were just talking during the break. There's constant, biggest cyber attacks ever on telecommunications, airlines, They think that Chinese ship last week cutting cables in the Baltic Sea. General, this is when World War III is already in its first phases. It's rolling out, but I hope we don't wake up dead.
You know, one of the things that's interesting in warfare, you look at is command and control, communications. We'll call them C4ISR systems, right? And when you start to think about the world of cyber as an event, and I think that we probably are experiencing one right now. I just got and I think it's breaking, but because we've been getting reports about particular outages in Florida, of course, which is where Donald J. Trump is at right now with his team. So how bad it is, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate, but when you start to really look at how to understand your enemy's capabilities, you monitor them, right? You're going to listen to what they're talking about. You're going to watch what they're doing. You're going to take stock in how they're positioning their resources, whether it's our nuclear arsenal or whether it's other forces that are at places like Fort Bragg or Fort Hood, or and those are the old names, but I'll stick with those. And from a military perspective, what is the Department of Defense doing? Are all the lights on in the Department of Defense right now, and are they going to be on through? And the answer is is there constant planning? And the answer is that there should be constant, and we need to look at all of the different things that are happening around the world. The cutting of the cable. This particular report now about Microsoft, and these are big organizations. The other thing is banking. I think that the banking industry has got to be another part of what is happening. There's been a lot of talk from the BRICS nations about this, shift to a digital currency, and whether or not the United States is going to do that. Donald J. Trump has had some ideas about what he wants to do. We'll see what they end up with. Doing, particularly on the digital
Microsoft global outage right now.
Yeah, so how does that happen? What is it affecting? What are the things that when we look at warfare and we look at what an enemy is doing? Is an enemy looking at how you are responding to this outage? Because, probes. Yeah, it's like reconnaissance. You're probing the line. You're actively maneuvering out there on the physical, the cyber, the domains of warfare, and you're probing to see what kind of response mechanisms does your opponent have. Are they capable of responding if there is an outage? Can they do certain things? Can they even move ships at sea? Can ships at sea actually communicate? I mean, all of these types of things that we do examine and have to understand. And the enemy does this all the time. We also do these kinds of things all the time, although I don't think we're as up to speed on the kinds of things that we need to do because, frankly, I think our military has been too crazily focused on this DEI stuff. So, there is a, I pulled this thing the other day from a friend and I had a conversation about sort of this summary of the multi-front war that we're facing. As kinetic, as we've been talking about, it's chemical, biological warfare, right? Those are the kinds of weapon systems that we have seen, right? The use of biological weapons in the whole COVID, right?
The truth is, we're in a undeclared fifth generational global war right now.
Big time. And I've written a book about it. We've been talking about this for a couple of years. It began even without the advent of this exchange of these nuclear capable missiles. There's a cultural component, there's an economic component, there's a legal component, there's clearly cyber. We're talking about it right now. And then there's a demographic component, because I think that one of the things that people they misunderstand is the way and the nature that the world is shifted in the last probably 25 years. China is at the forefront of that shift. When you're talking about 1.5 billion people, you look at a country like India, I think it's 1.4 billion people. You add in a couple of others that are within an alliance that the Chinese have worked very, very hard to bring together. You've got Iran is in there. We've talked about Venezuela, North Korea, of course, Russia and China, but you have other countries like Syria, Bolivia. You got to look at these non-state actors. We still have Al-Qaeda. We still have ISIS. We still have the Taliban, who we have been funding. We continue to fund the Taliban after we were beaten by them. We retreated and had, just the tragedy of leaving Afghanistan.
And the borders have been wide open.
Pakistan is another country, a nuclear capable country that is there, and Pakistan's relationship with the Chinese goes back to the mid-50s. So there are these alliances that we have to start to look at. And the administration that we have right now, this sleep at the switch administration, is a very dangerous administration.
Busy just looting money from Ukraine.
They have been destroying this country intentionally, and they've been doing it by allowing these millions and millions of illegals to come in here and basically destroy the fabric of our country educationally, healthcare-wise, the criminal actions on the streets of America. It's absolute insanity, and that's one of the big agenda items that Trump got elected on, or reelected on, and is going to have to go in and have to take care of. But all of that is happening. You have these different countries that are coming together, and the Chinese are behind every bit of it. And you have actors, people inside of our own government that kind of wander around the world, and you see them out there. We mentioned a few, but like the John Kerrys, John Brennan, Jim Clapper, the current director of the CIA is an interesting character. He still goes around there and does all these diplomatic things. When you wonder why do they have the CIA director doing things when we have a State Department and ambassadors that are supposed to be negotiating, diplomatic issues between nations? So we have all of these organizations. You see the United Nations. I'm not a big fan of the United Nations. I really don't see much that the United Nations has really done for world peace. I don't think they've done much. Then you have all these other world organizations, World Health Organization, World Bank, World Trade, International Monetary Fund. So you have these other organizations that are out there, and I think that what people need to understand is that the majority of them are anti-American. And so when we have people in our own government who have this anti-American or certainly anti-constitutional bent, because had Kamala Harris won, and I want to remind everybody, had Kamala Harris won, because we all want to be benevolent. We all want to be, when the fight's over with, we want to hug each other and go, okay, it was a great fight, back to our corners. And no, this is about ultimate power. Had Kamala Harris won, Donald Trump would be going to jail the 26th of this month.
It's an existential, we're in a death battle.
Exactly.
General, we're almost out of time. I want to take a few phone calls for you. We're going to go, and you're so gracious to be. You're going to be popping in before you get to the airport the first 30 minutes with new breaking news. A lot will happen the next hour and 15 minutes with Owen Schroyer at 3 p.m. Central for 30 minutes, graciously. And you'll have more for people then, obviously. You didn't get to everything today, but we appreciate you coming to town just for this. Let's go to a caller in Michigan first. Let's talk to Justin in Michigan. You're on the air with General Flynn. Go ahead, Justin.
Good evening to you, Alex and General Flynn. General Flynn, from a first principles perspective, what foundational measures should the United States adopt in the lead up to the inauguration to start the path to World War III, especially in light of the recent use of U.S. missiles by Ukraine against Russia? How can we fundamentally rethink our approach to international relations to ensure we're not sleepwalking into a broader conflict?
I think he answered that question last hour and a half, just in a recap.
Yeah, I quickly, it's opening up the communications lines, and I think Donald J. Trump is going to have to do that here very soon. He's going to have to get a message
who's
out.
in charge when they admit, both in Russia and here, that Russia wants to talk to us and the hotline has gone unused for years? That is criminal.
Right. Probably doesn't even exist.
All right, Justin, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Everybody needs to share this live feed. It's all going to be archived the next hour on X. Share this like your future depends on it, because it does. This is real expertise we had here today. Let's go ahead and take another call. Let's go ahead and talk to a caller in Ohio. Danny, you're on the air with General Michael Flynn. Go ahead.
How you doing, Mr. Flynn? How you doing, sir? How you doing, Alex?
Good. Go ahead.
Got a question for you. Under Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution requires that our government to protect and defend our borders. How in the world has not Biden been removed when he's letting these illegal people in here? Now we got, like you were just saying, people not in government still. How are they not violating the Logan Act, and how are they going to combat that when they just fiddle-faddle around with all this stuff and not go after people under rules of engagement like they're supposed to? Thank you.
Yeah. So briefly, that question should have been resolved when Congress took over, when the Republicans took over Congress 2 years ago, or just under 2 years ago now. So Yeah, I mean, that's why at where we're at now, I have said that we should, that Harris should either pull the 25th Amendment or Congress needs to start impeachment proceedings. There are 2 congressmen that have written up impeachment proceedings, Self out of Texas and then Massey, and we'll see. We'll see what they do. But we cannot have the destruction of our country, intentional destruction of our country, by allowing and opening up our borders. So this is just insane. And that's what's happening to our country. And that's why Donald Trump got reelected. It's one of the principal reasons why he got reelected was to get his domestic agenda in place immediately and get Tom home and give Tom Homan the resources that he needs, as the face of it, to stop this madness and get our country back to where we feel safe and secure once again. But this should have been taken care of a year and a half ago by Congress, when we gave Congress the mandated victory, when the Republicans took over, and they haven't done anything. All they actually have done is given more money to Ukraine.
Thank you, sir, for the call. And I noticed the callers, they're all great, but they're asking the same question. How do we stop this madness? We have to get these crazies out, and we are about to get them out. That's why they're doing this. This is desperate. Is there any way for Trump to directly communicate with the deep state and then publicly expose them and just say, we all know you're behind this. We all know you're trying to start World War III to keep me from getting into office or hand me a disaster, as Don Jr. said?
Yeah, I think just what you just said. If Donald, because we all recognize this. I mean, those of us that are paying attention, the American people, the God-given common sense that the American people have, they all see it. What we need to hear is that message coming from the person that we have elected. So I don't want to put pressure on them, but we are in a place right now where, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't get hyperbolic sometimes. I do, because I have lived a life of thinking, fighting these enemies that we have, and now the worst enemy that we have is right here at home. And so that's the deep state, fourth branch of government, fifth column, whatever you want to call them. And,
General, have you ever in your lifetime seen an existential crisis with this global realignment, the desperate establishment putting a nuclear gun to our head as we are in?
No, I never have. I've never seen it. And I've studied, world and U.S. history, and I have not seen this kind of existential threat to the United States of America. And the United States of America has not been through an existential threat like this, where our country was going to fall apart since the Civil War, since the United States Civil War, which we were going to be a divided nation at that time. And the first one was when I talked about earlier, the actual American Revolution, where we weren't even sure whether we were going to have a nation. So this is the greatest existential threat that we have faced in our nation's history, and we have the momentum is in the American people's hands. So those that are listening, call your congressman up, right? Your congressmen are about to come home on a little break for Thanksgiving. Go call them out. Call them out, folks. I mean, you got districts all over this country, 435 of them. Let's call these people out and tell them, hey, we're not, we don't think that you're doing enough, and tell them to do more. And I think that's where, from President Trump's perspective and his national security team, and the only real one that can talk right now is his national security advisor, because he's the only one that doesn't need confirmation and he's in the job.
Same position you had.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're almost out of time. Let's take a X Spaces commenter. Chase Geiser's in there running the X Spaces on the Mighty X. Chase, who are we going to go to here?
Let's go to Tara Reid. Tara Reid, if you're still with us, thank you for holding for so long. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, hi. General Flynn, a huge honor to speak with you. And Alex Jones, I am such a fan of yours. You just keep being the warrior that you are. General Flynn, I had a question. I worked for Leon Panetta and for Joe Biden in the past, and now I'm under political asylum in Russia. I won't get into my personal story. I wanted to stay on topic here because we are running out of time. But my question was, there's a lot of talk about people, like you mentioned, people you don't see out front, like Jamie Rubin, who's actually in the president's ear in the administration, very hawk-like. He was brought up by Madeleine Albright. They're talking about limited nuclear war, and that's how they're trying to manufacture consent. Can you talk a little bit, educate people who might not know how dire that is and how scary that is, and limited nuclear war and what they mean?
Yeah, thank you, Tara, and appreciate the call and you being part of what you're doing. there is going to be a narrative. The left, their minions, they're very good about creating a narrative. There is no such thing as, when you use the word nuclear, okay, there's no such thing as limited, and there's no such thing as tactical, okay? Once the genie is out of the bottle, once the nuclear genie is out of the bottle, there's nuclear capable nations all over the world, okay? And there are...
It creates a literal and figurative chain reaction.
And so, now what do? And what it does is it opens the door for the globalists who want to come in and start a massive war with Russia. And what does that get us? It gets us nowhere. It gets more killing. It's going to destroy a lot of things. It's going to cost the American people. So from an American perspective, it's going to cost this country possibly the existence of our nation as it is.
Well, don't most of the war games say it never stays limited? It always
never does. Yeah, it never does. And frankly, we always lose them. I mean, a lot of the exercises that we go through when we do these things, we end up losing the damn thing. So I think from Russia's perspective, I mean, I think that they would welcome some sensible, or sensible, discussion or a statement out of the incoming president of the United States. I believe that. I just firmly believe that. And
absolutely.
And all these people that are going to go, well, there's a Putin puppets. Screw you. This is not about being somebody's puppet or whatever. And they'll use these narratives, as Tara is highlighting. They use these terms, limited nuclear, objectives. Baloney.
Oh, they've had Hollywood idiots like Sean Penn with the talking point.
Right.
We should have nuclear war on the table. We shouldn't be scared to use it. They're literally pushing that as a talking point.
Yeah. It's terrible. I mean, it's what I said earlier, and Tara, I don't know if you caught that, but what I said is it is a controlled military commitment. When I use the phrase controlled military commitment, that means that those in the deep state, those in this administration, they think that they can have a controlled military action without having an effect or an impact here in the United States of America. That is, to me, that is crazy, crazy thinking.
And let's speak to that. 2 months ago, Keir Starmer said Biden is about to start bombing with ATACMS. We're going to use Storm Shadows. There's a diplomatic row. He runs over and meets with Biden, and then the New York Times said Biden agreed that they could be used, but he doesn't want the U.S. to be blamed. That's the same thinking. You can attack Russia with nuclear-capable missiles, and then you want a policy like blowing up Nord Stream where you don't get the blame. That is delusional.
It's big-time delusional. And, when somebody says, okay, we can do this, well, what will be their response? Well, they wouldn't fire. Like Lloyd Austin, we talked about Lloyd Austin, Secretary Lloyd Austin a little while ago. Well, if they did use them, they're not going to fire something into the United States of America. You know what we'd have to do to tool our entire nuclear system, our entire nuclear process to get it back to where it's ready again? I mean, go back a couple of years and look at the reports on some of these nuclear...
It's falling apart.
It's falling apart, folks.
And then Putin just proved they're not. Yeah. So we're almost out of time here, General. We're on the edge of oblivion here, or on the edge of a wonderful new future. It's so paradoxical.
It is. I mean, it's an existential, I call it an arc of history. An arc of history, you could either go one way or the other. And what we want is a peaceful transition of power. We want to get President Donald J. Trump, who just won a huge mandate, into office. We want him to be able to attack his agenda and make sure that his agenda gets pushed through. There's going to be, all of the political nonsense that they're going to try, but we want to have that ability to be able to get our country back on the rails, folks, because right now our country is off the rails.
That's right. We want a battle to get Trump president-elect, but the real war is getting him in and then draining the swamp. People need to understand.
It's like I said, and I know we're going to run out of time, but it's like I said the day after the election. This is D-Day +1. We have attacked the beaches of Normandy. We're up on the cliffs now. We've broken through the hedgerows, but this is D-Day +1. We cannot declare victory over
because Zeb Dietrich and the Battle of the Bulge is coming.
Exactly, and it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, I think it's here.
Yeah.
Notice they want us to sleepwalk.
Yeah.
They even know the general government, even most of the politicians don't understand this. What do you think, briefly, I mean, we know who the people are, but in the deep state, who's the most powerful operatives? Blinken, the current CIA director? Because they admit they're making these decisions. how do we legally, lawfully, non-violently put heat on them?
Right. Well, I mean, a lot right now it's Congress. I mean, that's, what we have in our system is we have Congress to be able to, and Speaker Johnson, who has extraordinary authority to be able to do things, and honestly, President-elect Donald J. Trump has extraordinary I think it's referent power right now. He's got a mandate. And he's a proven leader as president of the United States of America already. It's not like we're guessing on what this guy, could do or might be. He's already done some incredible things for this nation and kept us out of war.
Well, I know you talked to him, and I've talked to folks they say he's working on this, but obviously it's just seconds or days and months now. I'm going to do this right now, General Flynn. Stay right there, and you're going to be on for the first 30 minutes of the war, and then you got to go. So that's coming up in about an hour and 5 minutes from now, very graciously. I'm going to say this. We're going to stop this World War III. I believe God's going to move in here. He already gave us Trump. We're going to expose this. You're going to share this live feed. You're going to share the clips. We're going to reach tens of millions more people. But separately, if we don't take care of what we're doing here, this operation won't be here. General Flynn does all this on his own tirelessly. We're out here really effectively in the information warfare space with the truth, countering their lies. There is a war on for the mind. Elon Musk is coming to my aid, filing a lawsuit, trying to block my X account being given to the Democrats and this whole Bloomberg front group. And there's some cavalry coming, but I'm funded by you. And so I'm so focused on this and the World War III that I've not been up here really infomercialing like I need to fund this, because this takes a lot of money to do, the satellites, the servers, the lawyers. I've held off the globalists. They've spent almost $80 million trying to shut us down. We've spent $16 million the last 7 years holding them off. Flynn's been through the ringer, and we understand. We're warriors. We'll do it. We love fighting the enemy. We expect this. We're not whining. We signed on for this. But you're the other ingredient. You are the variable, sharing the articles, praying for us, spreading the word, taking the clips, and going to generalflynn.com and get a ball cap, get a T-shirt, get his great 5th generational warfare books, support him, get his new incredible film that documents what really happened, gives you a great understanding of the deep state and leadership and how to fight it. Go there. He's a humble guy who doesn't ask for the support. I know he is doing everything he can. Same with InfoWars. Go to the AlexJonesStore.com. Whatever happens to InfoWars, that's an outside sponsor with supplements and ball caps and T-shirts and the same type stuff that spreads the word, that makes your life better. CMOS is an incredible superfood. We've got our great Hydroforce with all the vitamins and minerals and great electrolytes. Just things you need, high quality, that keep us on the air. I cannot do it. People thank me all day. Well, I want to thank those of you that have supported in the past. Look how far we've come. So you're putting the cart before the horse. It's you that share the articles. It's you that share the videos. It's you that give us the intel. It's you that fund us to stay in the fight for all of our collective futures. So go now to the AlexJonesStore.com. I want to thank those that have. Get a limited edition poster. Yeah, there's a markup there. You're like, well, posters cost like $6-7. Yeah, no, it's $50 and one's $30 because we need real funds to fight these people. If you really want to support, do that. Not much markup in the T-shirts and the supplements. So go to the AlexJonesStore.com and support today. All of this is capable. All of this is happening because of you. Look in the mirror and thank yourself for your past support and support again. And go to GeneralFlynn.com and follow him on X as well. General, thank you so much.
God bless. Brother.
God's hand was upon this. That 2 weeks ago you said, you go off your gut, which is all the data that you focus down into the gut. It's not really the gut. It's all that knowledge. Just you needed to be here today. This was God's hand on this.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you, sir. All right, there's an emergency court hearing going on right now. We'll be back. Stay with us for the next hour. Chase is coming in.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
A few weeks ago, when I saw Elon Musk in Pennsylvania with Trump at Butler, and he had that dark MAGA hat on, I said, we've got to have our own. And we've come out with it. Yeah, we can put one out that just says "Make America Great Again," and that's available at the AlexJonesStore.com. But I personally like this one, murdered out. It fits great, and it funds the InfoWar and supports President Trump. And if you don't like murdered out, we got it white on black. So get yours right now, and a bunch of other great designs of hoodies and T-shirts and top-of-the-line supplements that all fund the Second American Revolution at the AlexJonesStore.com. Let me show you a few more of these. Now that the FDA admits fluoride does lower your IQ and give you cancer and infertility, it's a great time to wear one of these beautiful hats, and it's a great way to start a conversation and warn people. Here's the classic Make America Great Again Murdered Out, and we've got the Save the Frogs, over 50 designs, all at thealexjonesstore.com, and it keeps us on air and it spreads the word. Please go to alexjonesstore.com and get your Patriot gear.